Hi friends, welcome back to the series of getting started playing the tin whistle. In the first video that I'll link at the top, we talked about what key you should get. And for me, the obvious answer is D, because most music that you're going to play on a whistle is in the key of D or in a key that a D whistle can play. In today's video, we're going to talk about, well, what whistle should you get as your first whistle? I've got some recommendations for you, and I also am going to recommend things you should look for in your first whistle. Now, I'm going to have this video on selecting your first high D, and I'm going to have another video on selecting your first low D, because I think you're going to want one of each, really, and because they do different things for you, and you're going to love both of them so much. And I would love you, experienced players, to chime in and tell us what your recommendations would be for folks to get. Now, I see two groups of players, and there are folks who are just testing the waters. I don't know that I really want to do this, but I'm going to try it, so I just want to get a cheap whistle. Okay, I've got recommendations for you. There's another group of, I'm all in, or I'm already an experienced woodwind player and I'm all in, or I'm testing the waters and I want to try something better. And so I've got recommendations there. And the recommendations actually go across the board for all of us. And I have first, though, some criteria that you should consider when selecting your first whistle. These criteria and more you're going to use in selecting subsequent whistles. That's another conversation. So here are the criteria in selecting your first whistle. It should be a whistle that is easy to obtain. I have a high D whistle that is inexpensive that I love, that doesn't hit the list because you're going to have to wait a number of weeks to get it. So it has to be a whistle you can easily obtain and order and have shipped to you. It should be a whistle that plays easily from the bottom to the top. There are some whistles that you could buy for under $20 that are really hard to play. Or you could play some of the notes easily and some of the notes aren't easy to play. There are whistles that are available for around the $20 mark that are easy to play from the bottom to the top. And I think that you should get one of those whistles because you're aiming for success in playing the whistle. And I've got recommendations that meet that criteria. You want a whistle that is not going to break the bank. Now, if you're in either just testing the waters group or if you're in the group of I'm all in, there are whistles that won't break the bank either way. So, this group, the less expensive whistles are right around the $20 mark, and the slightly more expensive whistles, I'd call them intermediate whistles, you could pick up, I don't know, $70 to just over $100, like that money category. It needs to be a whistle. The last category I'm giving you is that you're going to enjoy hearing as you play. Nobody wants to play an instrument that they don't think sounds nice. So listen to me, listen to other folks play them on YouTube, other places before you pull the trigger. And as you're doing that, listen to people that are just playing, that it hasn't gone through a lot of software massaging. And you probably also don't want to listen to the best professionals out there because they can play anything well. Just listen to normal folks playing the whistle, and that will help you out. So those are my criteria for getting started playing the whistle. And if you've been with me for a while, you know that my personal preference is to get at least an intermediate whistle. And let me explain that momentarily. You see, if you get a very entry-level whistle, if you get a good entry-level whistle, you're going to love it. You're going to be nostalgic about it. You're going to keep it. You're going to pick it up and play it years from now. And that's great. But if you get an intermediate whistle, that intermediate instrument has better capabilities and you can grow with it faster than with the other whistle. It presents more challenges for you, and it could become your primary whistle moving into the future, and then you're only buying once. And I've got some recommendations there, but on my channel and other channels, once you start getting into that intermediate whistle, there's a flood of good options available. So let's think about some options for your first whistle at and around the $20 range. And when you're thinking about your first whistle at and around the $20 range, I want you to think about the criteria. I want you to listen to whistles, and I don't want you to automatically go to what everybody says you should think about getting. I am going to play a broad range in an upcoming video of high D whistles that are in that $20 group. Some of them, to be honest, are harder to play. Some are inconsistent from one whistle to another. You could buy one of them and you'd love it. You could buy the next one and you want to throw it away. I don't want you to buy a throwaway whistle. Don't waste your money. Here are a few good options for inexpensive, around that $20 mark, that you could pick up readily and easily. And I'll put links in the notes to this video so that you know. One of the least expensive and amazingly great whistles around the $20 range is a Tony Dixon. It's a single piece. There's a tunable version available as well, but it throws it over $20. It's made of polymer. It's got this ring at the bottom, stabilizes the tone well. This is amazing for you to use in starting to play. I'll put a link, as I said, to places you could get some of these. Tony Dixon, folks, well done. Thank you for putting out such a great whistle for such a low price. I hate to say one's at the top of my list, but this might be at the top of my list. All right. Another very easy to obtain whistle is the Clark Sweet Tone. It's see, isn't that lovely? In some ways, these are very, very similar from a tone quality, playability standpoint, and that's why I want to recommend these. I don't want you just running out and buying something and go, oh, this tin whistle thing's a piece of blah. Another example that is about the same price mark, you have to order. You may have to order this one from the folks at Lear. It's a Lear. They call it the Lear penny whistle. It's leans a little bit more toward a traditional tone, kind of like the Clark Sweet Tone. The Dixon is a little more mellow. One other to add, the Airflow, you have to pick this one up from the folks at McNeela Music. Okay, a little bit more. I'm adding this one and the Lear because they're very playable. They're good instruments. They're in that price point and they're leaning more traditional. I'd probably put the Dixon at the top, sweet tone, and then it's a toss-up between the Lear and the Airflow. A lot depends on what you're after. So that's those options. And the challenge is, a lot of you who've been playing for a long time are like, oh no, you didn't include my favorite inexpensive whistle. I'm sorry. There's even at that price point, there's a lot of opinion. But those are my recommendations for ease of play, tone quality, consistency from one instrument to the next. So I hope you like those. Now, I have a few recommendations at that slightly higher price point. And I've got to be honest, the challenge here is that there's an ocean of opportunity of whistles you could purchase here. And those of you who are more experienced players, please chime in with your favorite inexpensive intermediate whistle. For example, there's a Tony Dixon trad whistle I do not have. And I think if I had it, I'd recommend that one. So the ones I'm recommending, the very first whistle I purchased was a McNeela Wild Irish High D. This list priced $129. We're now in a tunable whistle, a thicker body, more resonant. This whistle, you will keep this as your primary high D for a long time, and you'll grow with this whistle because it can do a lot more than those other whistles can. And McNeela often offers discounts, so that's a good thing. I don't have a Killarney High D, but I'll put a link in the notes. Very, very similar to the Lear. As a matter of fact, the Wild Irish, I'm holding the Lear, and these are all made off of the same style, I'll say, modeled after another very famous High D. So the Killarney is another great one I've heard played, and a lot of people, it's a toss-up which of these three they like better, the Lear, the Wild Irish, or the Killarney. It's because they're triplets. Slightly different, but the same. So the Lear is very similar as well. I personally am very happy I got the Wild Irish as my first, but I'd be just as happy if I had purchased one of the others. I'm going to throw one other in. A little less at the $70-something price range. If you live in an environment where you want it a little more quiet, this is called the Shush Pro. Excellent whistle. It's quieter. I love the tone of it. It's less money, especially if you live like in an apartment or something. It's made as a quieter whistle, but it's still beautiful. There are so many more options, but those will be my recommendation. Interestingly, you might be saying now after that, well, why don't I just buy a professional whistle? Ha, that's funny. That's a great segue. Thank you for the question. I contacted, because I was interested a number of months back, a professional whistle maker who very kindly wrote me back and said, I would love to make a whistle for you. But please bear in mind, if you are a beginner, you don't want one of my whistles. My whistles require a certain measure of skill to play. If you are at least an intermediate player, then my whistle will reward you. But if you are a beginner, I recommend you get a Wild Irish or a Killarney. And I'd throw the Lear and the SchurzPro in there as well. There's another manufacturer who you also have to wait months to get their whistle. I contacted them just to see what they'd say. And they're like, well, if you're a beginner, you don't want one of our whistles because our whistles require more skill to play. And so all that just to say, I stick with my recommendations. If you're just testing the waters, or if you don't want to break the bank, go for the $20 range. If you're all in and you want to start with an intermediate whistle, get one of my other recommendations. I'm going to do the same video for the low D. I hope this is helpful for you, my friends. If you are just getting started, buy one of these and you'll be happy as a clam. Pay attention to the comments that the experienced players add to this video because there are more options. But remember the criteria. I want it to be immediately available, that plays consistently from one purchase to the next, that plays easily top to bottom, and that has a good tone to it. Even leaning traditional chiffy, that's perfectly fine. Anyway, I hope this helps you. I hope it helps you with your purchase of your first whistle. Until next time, my friends, this is Scott Shade. Happy whistling.